Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Oh boy, what a game. First off, before we start this, I would just like to explain the fact that I actually really enjoyed the game, but we kind of have to look at everybody who didn't enjoy it just to see what they did wrong. But basically, before we started off, we're going to be looking at a few opinions, one of my friend, and one of just a YouTuber who is really, really great and plays a lot of Zelda. So let's look at those now. So the YouTuber said that the controls were more complicated and the story gave them a better understanding of Breath of the Wild. I agree with this, and yeah, I just agree. Now my friend's opinion, they said that the game is very underrated because they love the playstyle, and there are many great parts, like the best character, in their opinion, Hestu. Apparently, as he says, some of the coolest characters were not very good, like Calamity Ganon and Teba. They were really weak, and their playstyle was not designed well. And he says, though people look down on the game, the storyline is a lot better than Breath of the Wild. And I agree with these mostly. But sadly, we have to look at what they did wrong, because it's a video about that. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, one of the worst rated Zelda video games of all time, somehow. Well, let's take a look at what made it so bad. I think it was mostly because it was all action. When you think of Zelda, you probably think of a big open world adventuring and some action too, right? This game was only action, and the only part where you even slightly explored was when it was a glorified walking simulator and you were walking to get to more enemies to fight. So that's one of the reasons I think it was so bad. Another reason, it did not feel balanced. In all the Zelda games, pretty much, you were focused on like 1, 2, maybe 3 enemies, and you had to figure out clever ways to defeat them. But in this game, you can just plow through enemies, which, yes, is very satisfying, but it does not feel like Zelda. It feels more like, I don't know, some game where you just plow through enemies just to be fun and satisfying, when in Zelda, it should be more strategic and focused. But yeah, those are some of the reasons it flopped. I feel like also just because the characters were terrible. Don't get me wrong, I really liked some of them, but then there's Calamity Ganon, whose boss fight was actually incredibly boring in Hyrule Warriors. And then when you unlocked him as a playable character, he was terrible, like many other characters. And a lot of it was just like people wanted to explore the areas because it was like a completely new setting and it was pretty cool, but we just didn't get that. As I already said, it was very linear. Which I feel like those are the reasons that it did so terribly. Which sucks because I really like this game, but I have to look at both sides and I know why people hated it. And it's understandable. So yeah, that's why Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity was so terrible.